Greetings, my name is Denise Califato Russo, and I will be facilitating your course this semester. And I am making this introduction video for any student who misses the face-to-face version of the course and also for online students. So I'll try to include information for both. So a little bit about me, like all of you. I was born, and I always love to show this picture because, of course, what's fascinating here isn't baby Denise, but is my mom's hair. And I joke in class that wouldn't it be great if we could find a way to put a cell phone carrier holder up in that hair, and then when we went out and we were wearing clothing without pockets and we didn't have items, like purses or other carrier items with us, we could just put our phone in our hair because I always end up sticking mine in my leggings, and then, that's not secure. There's no pocket and it falls. Anyway, so beyond that, whatever my childhood was, I eventually went to college, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that experience. And the fact also, or my recommendation, that you try to do your studies with your eyes open, more effective, which takes me to my experience. I did grow up in Santa Cruz County for most of my life, and when I graduated from Las Gatas High, because I lived part of that time in Aptos and part of that time in the Santa Cruz Mountains, my parents were divorced. I was a first generation college student, and so I didn't leave home. I went to my first school here, which is San Jose State, and I was in the major in that period of time, which was the 80s, where when you didn't know what you wanted to be when you grew up, and that was business. I think in the early 2000s, that's become communication for a lot of students. Both are great, but it really didn't align with who I was or what I was interested in or any career that I was considering. And so after a year at San Jose State, I I not only withdrew, I literally had my car packed and walked in to take my very last final in finite math, and didn't it walked in, picked it up, went to the back where I sat, started to looked at the exam. I didn't even solve a problem. Looked at the exam, realized that my car was packed and I was moving to do what I love to do, and so I walked back up and handed the exam to the professor and said, "Thank you, but I'm dropping out of school and I'm not going to take your exam." And my words of advice to you are, don't do that. If you showed up, just take the exam. I had a solid B in that class, if not an A, but I think it was a B, and there was no reason for me not to get an A or a B in that class, but I ended up with a D. So I left and I went to pursue spending time with horses because I was an equestrian growing up, and I was desperately missing my horses. So I went to work on a horse farm in Paso Robles, and that's where I learned what the true benefit of a college education is. And it is getting a job, yes, but it's beyond that. It's actually having jobs with upward mobility where you have opportunities to have career advancements and to do more in the world, and to have health benefits and retirement and things that created financial security that might someday lead you to a life where you could then do your passion for hobby. So this is my horse Jack. I rescued him. Was rescued during the CRZ fires in 2020, and I adopted him. He had been not abused, but very neglected. He was quite hungry and lacked hoof care and had some issues when I got him. So now I just horse for fun. Anyway, after spending some time working with horses, I realized that I was going to spend the rest of my life working 6 days a week and not even earning enough money to live on my own. So I went back to school at the community college where I had moved, and that was Cuesta College in San Luis Obispo County. And I pursued a degree in business because I still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, and business seemed like, an open door. And I transferred from Cuesta College to Cal Poly with a degree in managerial science, but I also had realized in my last class at Cuesta, I had taken a nutrition class because I was bodybuilding, so I was interested in what nutrition might be like. And that was when I finally had my light bulb moment of, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do when I grow up. I want to teach nutrition uh, at a community college. So I found my life path, my career interest when I was actually a student at community college. And then from there, like I said, I transferred to Cal Poly. I applied to transfer as a sociology major because I actually already knew I wanted to teach college. I just didn't know what. And sociology seemed like something that might be interesting. Just so you know, I had never taken a sociology class at that point. I just transferred to Cal Poly as a sociology major. Once I got there, I quickly switched to nutrition, and I graduated from Cal Poly with my bachelor's in nutrition. And then because I wanted to teach community college, I went back to San Jose State and obtained my master's in nutrition, because that is the requirement for teaching college, is having an advanced degree, which means I know a lot about nutrition, but doesn't means that I didn't necessarily learn anything about how to teach, because college professors don't have to have any training in teaching. My emphasis was nutrition education, so I did have some awareness, but I am currently, and the year right now is 2021, I am currently starting year 3 of a doctoral program at Grand Canyon University. It is all online, except for 2 residencies that you do in person, and that is actually in education and the teaching of adult learners. So I have progressed quite a bit in my teaching pedagogy or style of teaching. Along that journey, actually at Cal Poly, I met Scott, and I eventually married him, and we have been in the Aptos community for a long time now. I don't know. I haven't done the math on it, 28 years or something like that, but quite some time. We came back to where I grew up, and we actually got married here. Directly out of college, I did an internship to become a registered dietitian. And so I worked as a registered dietitian, and I preferred clinical. Just so you know, to become a registered dietitian, you have to complete an internship that's about, I think it's 900 hours. Most people do it over a year. Mine was over 9 months. And you then have, and that internship includes working in hospital-based clinical dietetics, community health or public health dietitian, and then food service management rotation. My interest was in the clinical aspect of it, the health aspect of it, more than the food service management aspect of it, but there are a wide variety of career options for people who choose to become a registered dietitian. And then every 5 years, I have to complete 75 hours of continuing education to maintain that credential. So I talk about being a registered dietitian, and you'll read about it in the book, but what it tells you is that if someone's a registered dietitian versus just saying a nutritionist, which could be anyone, there's no legal definition to that, it tells you that they have a degree in it and they have to continually study it. Doesn't mean that they're better than a nutritionist. You just need to check the credentials and the qualifications if you're seeing a nutritionist. Also, I have been a group fitness instructor since I was in college, and so I do consult. I was a director for a program for over 20 years, but now I'm just a consultant for them at a program in Aptos where I teach boot camp and cycle and sometimes stretch meditation. But my main career goal, as you know, I have other things I do also. I coach locally, and I do photography, but my main career goal was teaching college, and so I have been teaching college since 1996. When I walked into my first classroom 8 months pregnant, they were desperate for a nutrition instructor at West Valley, and I just decided to make that work. And then I've been teaching distance ed. I started actually the following year in 1997 and started teaching online only classes in early 2000. So but I've been in the classroom always since 1996, always taught face to face. So I have a lot of experience, and through that experience of teaching college, I learned that there's a lot of inequity in education, and I have really strived to create what I consider a more socially just methodology or pedagogy, and that's what I'm studying in college. So for my face-to-face learners, the type of learning we do is called flipped classroom, which is a blended format. And if you're in my face-to-face class, we will learn more about that. If you're in my online class, your class is not flipped, all of yours is online. So, but I still try to bring into my online class what I have learned, self-learned in taking online classes, physics, photography, and then currently, obviously, in my program, I try to put that into our classroom to create engagement so your success is improved also. I'm really ultimately after that students can persist or stay in class and finish their goal. Okay, and then other things about me. I had a baby. That was the 1996 baby. And then I had another baby. And then for some reason I thought, have another baby. And then I realized that was crazy. Stop having babies. So I have raised 3 children locally. If this is my Cabrillo class, West Valley, if this is my West Valley class, then just over the hill. And some of the experience that I will bring into our classroom when I can, and it works, is the experience of not just clinical dietetics that I'm familiar with, but also personal experience of, fitness, sport nutrition, and then of raising humans to become adults. And so in that picture is my oldest graduated college in 2020 in December. He was on the 6.5-year path. I beat him. I was on the 7-year path to get my bachelor's degree. And then my daughter graduated after. And I should mention that they all went to community college. They all started at Cabrillo College. Other things about me, best advice, there's some things that everyone, don't procrastinate. Maybe print up the syllabus course schedule to use as a checklist, or in Canvas, you can use the calendar in the to-do tab. The reminder not to panic, it's on my home pages, but don't panic if something's not working. Don't spend 5 hours trying to make something that's not working work, thinking, oh my gosh, there's a due date, I've got to get it done. Rather that, send me an email and say, Denise, I tried to do this. This is what happened. I'm not going to be able to complete it by the due date. Please help me. And as soon as I can help you, even if it's after the due date, I will help you and I will work with you. Since it's a nutrition class, I guess I'll mention that my favorite cultural food is pasta, but my favorite food is actually cheese, and also avocado, and I love tortilla chips. So that's that. And I often ask students, if you were a fruit or a vegetable, what would you be? And I always say I would be a fruit salad, which feels like a little bit of a cop-out, but I haven't been diagnosed with ADD, and I don't know if that's what I have, but I definitely have a brain that travels in 50 different directions at one time. I'm always coming up with ideas. They're popping into my head, and I'm texting people or saying to someone, hey, I had this idea the other day. And I jump from job to job to job. I currently have 5 of them, or from grading for you to working on my dissertation or whatever it is. So I always feel like there's just a blend of really good stuff going on in my brain, and that's why I say I'm a fruit salad. Anything else? Just a reminder that you can set your pronouns and other things. You can change your name if you have a nickname that you prefer to be addressed, to have students in the class to address you with your nickname. You can change all of that through accounts and then settings in the sidebar of Canvas. And then lastly, just to mention why I teach online, but then I'm going to follow up with why I teach face-to-face. I teach online because there was a student demand for it and a need for it. Not everyone can make it to campus. This was even before COVID. It met my need for flexibility with my own family, so I started teaching online. Like I said, distance ed early on, but I switched to the online format maybe in 2003, I think, is when I asked, when we got a platform like Canvas, but it was called WebAdvisor, Angel, or Black. I think it was WebAdvisor or Angel. And as soon as I found out that was an option, I switched to online because it created flexibility and met the need of my students, but also for my own life. And then it allows me to have multiple jobs, all the different things that I do. So why I teach face-to-face, because no matter how well I craft and design my online class, I 100% believe that the learning that happens through discourse, through conversation, the sharing of experiences, the collaboration that occurs in the classroom, I just don't know that with online classes we can quite reach that. So I feel like with online classes, we check a box, we meet a goal, you'll learn more. But I don't know that it's for most students. as rich and practical. I don't know that my online students leave with the idea of, oh, what would it be like to be a dietitian working with clients, or what would it be like to work alongside a dietitian if I'm a nurse and I work in a hospital, for example, or how would that look if I wanted to work with athletes and advise them on nutrition. I just don't know that without that collaboration and that um, synchronous communication, I don't know that it's as effective in online, but I promise you I will try to make it as effective as I can, and some of it will be up to you how you pursue it. So that's about me, and I appreciate learning all about you, and just encourage you to remember that this whole learning journey is a collaboration. I'm your facilitator. I am not the person trying to just push information into your brain, and I hope that we can work together to help you achieve your learning goals. Eat well, play fit.